Captain Marcus Webb stared at the swirling vortex of light through the reinforced glass of the observation deck. The wormhole was nothing like the scientists had predicted. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Ribbons of purple and gold twisted together in patterns that hurt his eyes if he looked too long. The ship's engines hummed beneath his feet as the crew prepared for what might be humanity's greatest achievement or its final mistake. The exploration vessel Horizon had been built for this moment. 20 years of research and construction had gone into creating a ship that could survive the journey through an unstable wormhole. No one knew what waited on the other side. The automated probes that had been sent through never came back. Their signals simply stopped the moment they entered the swirling mass of energy. "Captain, we have final confirmation from Earth Command," said Lieutenant Chen from her station at the communications console. Her voice was steady, but Marcus could see her hands shaking slightly. "They're giving us the green light to proceed." Marcus nodded slowly. He looked around the bridge at his crew of 50 brave souls who had volunteered for this mission. Every single one of them knew the risks. The probability of survival had been calculated at just 32%. Yet here they were, ready to take humanity's first steps into the unknown. "All stations report ready," announced First Officer Sarah Kim. She was a veteran of 3 deep space missions and had been Marcus's choice for second in command. Her calm presence helped keep the younger crew members focused. The ship moved closer to the wormhole's edge. Instruments began to go haywire as the strange energies affected their sensors. Warning lights flashed across multiple consoles, but the crew had trained for this. They knew that once they entered the wormhole, they would be flying blind. "Engineering reports all systems nominal," called out Chief Engineer Rodriguez from his station. "The hull is holding steady, structural integrity at 100%. Marcus took a deep breath. This was it, the moment that would define not just their lives but the future of their entire species. He thought about his family back on Earth. His daughter had cried when he left, begging him not to go. He had promised her that he would come back. It was a promise he intended to keep. "Helm, take us in," Marcus ordered. His voice was clear and strong. 1/4 impulse. "Aye, Captain," responded Pilot Jackson, his fingers dancing across the controls. 1/4 impulse, entering the wormhole in 30 seconds. The ship lurched forward. Through the viewport, the swirling colors grew larger and larger until they filled the entire view. Marcus gripped the arms of his command chair as the first waves of energy washed over the hull. The lights flickered. Someone gasped, but the ship kept moving forward. The moment they crossed the threshold, everything changed. Reality seemed to bend and twist around them. Marcus felt his stomach drop as if he were falling from a great height. Colors that had no names flashed before his eyes. He heard sounds that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Status report," he shouted over the noise. "Instruments are offline," Chen yelled back. "I can't get a reading on anything." The ship shook violently. Metal groaned under pressure that had never been anticipated. Emergency alarms blared throughout the vessel. Marcus saw crew members struggling to stay at their stations as the deck pitched and rolled beneath them. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Rodriguez reported. "Emergency bulkheads are sealing." Marcus felt his heart sink. They had not even made it through the wormhole yet, and they were already taking damage. But there was no turning back now. The forces inside the wormhole had them in their grip. They could only go forward. "Everyone hold on," Sarah shouted. "This is going to get rough." She was right. The next few minutes felt like hours. The ship was tossed about like a toy in a hurricane. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. The artificial gravity failed for a terrifying moment before backup systems kicked in. Through it all, the crew of the Horizon held their positions. They trusted their ship, they trusted their captain, and they trusted each other. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The ship emerged from the other side of the wormhole into calm, dark space. Stars glittered in unfamiliar patterns. They had made it. They were the first humans to travel through a wormhole and survive. "Damage report," Marcus said, his voice hoarse. Rodriguez ran his hands over his console. "Multiple hull breaches sealed. Life support is functioning. Engines are at 70%. We lost 2 sensor arrays and the main communications antenna." "Casualties?" Sarah checked her display. "Medical is reporting 15 injured. 3 are serious but stable. No fatalities." Marcus let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. No one had died. Against all odds, they had made it through. But he knew their journey was far from over. They were now farther from Earth than any human had ever been. Whatever challenges awaited them in this new region of space, they would face them together. "Chen, can you get any readings on where we are?" he asked. The communications officer shook her head. "The navigation computer is still rebooting. I'm picking up some unusual energy signatures from about 200 kilometers off our port bow, but I can't identify them." On screen, the main viewer flickered to life. What they saw made everyone on the bridge fall silent. There, floating in the void, was a massive structure. It was clearly artificial, made of metal and glass and materials that looked nothing like anything from Earth. Lights blinked along its surface in complex patterns. "Is that what I think it is?" Jackson whispered. Marcus nodded slowly, his mind racing with the implications. "It appears we are not alone in the universe." The alien structure hung in space like nothing Marcus had ever seen. It was easily 10 times the size of the horizon, a complex arrangement of interconnected modules and towers that defied any architectural logic he knew. Some sections were smooth and curved, while others bristled with antenna-like projections. The whole thing rotated slowly on its axis, the lights along its surface pulsing in rhythmic patterns. "Are we being scanned?" Sarah asked, moving to stand beside the captain's chair. Chen worked her console. "Definitely. I'm detecting multiple sensor sweeps originating from the structure. They're using frequencies I've never seen before." "Can they communicate with us?" "Unknown. I'll try broadcasting on all standard frequencies." Chen's fingers flew across her console. "This is the Earth vessel Horizon calling unidentified station. We come in peace. Please respond." Static filled the bridge speakers. Then slowly, a pattern began to emerge. It was not language as they knew it, but there was something deliberate about the sounds, something intelligent. "They're responding," Chen said, her voice filled with wonder. "I think they're trying to establish a common communication protocol." For the next hour, the crew worked to decode the alien signals. It was slow going, but the beings on the other side seemed just as eager to make contact. Bit by bit, a crude translation matrix was built. Simple concepts were exchanged. Numbers, basic shapes. Eventually, something that might have been a greeting. "I think I have something," Chen announced. "They're calling themselves the Veloran, and they want us to dock with their station." Murmurs spread across the bridge. First contact with an alien species was something humanity had dreamed about for centuries. Now it was actually happening, and they were the ones making it. Marcus considered the risks. Their ship was damaged. They had no way to call for help. If the Veloran proved hostile, they would be completely at their mercy. But the alternative was drifting in unknown space with dwindling resources. "We accept their invitation," he decided. "Helm, take us in, slowly." As the Horizon approached the alien station, a section of its hull began to move. Panels slid aside to reveal a docking bay large enough to accommodate their ship. Guiding lights appeared, showing them the way. The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth. Clamps extended from the station to secure the human vessel. An airlock connection was established. And then, for a long moment, nothing happened. "Atmospheric readings from the station match our requirements," Rodriguez reported. "Temperature, pressure, oxygen levels. It's like they knew what we needed." "Maybe they did," Sarah said quietly. Their scanners could have analyzed our ship and figured out our biology. Marcus stood from his chair. I'm leading the first contact team. Sarah, you have the bridge. Rodriguez, Chen, you're with me. We'll also take 4 security officers. Captain, are you sure you should be the one to go? Sarah asked. This is exactly what I should be doing. If something happens to me, you're more than capable of getting the crew home. He looked at her with confidence. Besides, I didn't come all this way to hide on the bridge. The team assembled at the airlock. They wore light environmental suits as a precaution, though the atmosphere readings suggested they would not need them. Each person carried a translation device loaded with the crude communication matrix Chen had developed. Remember, Marcus said as the airlock cycled, we are ambassadors for our entire species. Whatever happens in there, we represent humanity. Let's make sure we represent it well. The inner door opened, revealing a corridor bathed in soft blue light. The walls were smooth and curved, made of a material that looked like polished stone but felt slightly warm to the touch. Strange symbols were inscribed along the ceiling, glowing faintly. The team moved forward cautiously. Their footsteps echoed in the quiet space. Then, at the end of the corridor, figures emerged. The Veloran were tall and slender, with skin that shimmered in shades of silver and blue. They had 4 arms and large eyes that seemed to hold an ancient wisdom. Their movements were graceful, almost fluid, as they approached the human visitors. One of them stepped forward. It wore robes that seemed to be made of light itself. When it spoke, the words were strange, but the translation device did its best to interpret. Welcome, travelers from the distant star. We are the Veloran. We have watched your approach through the portal with great interest. Marcus bowed slightly, hoping the gesture would be understood as respectful. We are humans, from the planet Earth. We came through the wormhole seeking knowledge and peaceful contact with other beings. The lead Veloran tilted its head in what might have been curiosity. The portal is dangerous. Many who attempt the crossing do not survive, yet your vessel emerged intact. This is most unusual. We suffered some damage, Marcus admitted, but our crew worked together to bring us through safely. The Veloran exchanged glances among themselves. Some form of silent communication seemed to pass between them. Then the leader spoke again. Your species is young. We have observed your world for many cycles. You are bold and curious, but also reckless. Many in the Galactic Assembly believed you would destroy yourselves before reaching the stars. Galactic Assembly, Chen asked through her device. A gathering of the elder races. We have maintained peace in this region of space for longer than your species has existed. When new travelers emerge from the portals, it falls to us to evaluate them, to determine if they are ready to join the greater community. Marcus felt the weight of those words. They were being judged, not just him and his crew, but all of humanity. Every action they took, every word they spoke, would shape how these beings viewed their entire species. We hope to prove ourselves worthy, he said carefully. The Veloran leader's expression was impossible to read. That remains to be seen. For now, you are guests on our station. We will provide what assistance we can for your vessel. But know this, a great danger approaches this sector of space. Your arrival may be fortunate timing, or it may be the worst luck imaginable. What kind of danger? Rodriguez asked. Before the Veloran could answer, alarms began to blare throughout the station. The lights shifted from blue to a pulsing red. The alien beings suddenly moved with urgent purpose, their calm demeanor replaced by obvious concern. They have come early, the leader said. The devouring swarm, they will be here within hours. The station transformed from a place of peaceful first contact into a hive of frantic activity. Veloran rushed through the corridors, their graceful movements now urgent and purposeful. Screens along the walls displayed tactical information in an alien script that Marcus could not read, but the urgency was universal. What is the devouring swarm? Marcus demanded, keeping pace with the Veloran leader as they moved deeper into the station. "A plague upon all civilized worlds," the leader replied. "They consume everything in their path. Organic matter, metals, energy. Nothing survives their passage. We have fought them for thousands of cycles, but they always return." They entered a command center filled with holographic displays. In the center, a three-dimensional map of the surrounding space showed the station as a small point of light, and approaching it, like a dark cloud spreading across the stars, was something massive. "Millions of them," Chen whispered, her face pale. The swarm was exactly what its name suggested. Countless creatures moved through space in a coordinated mass, each one a nightmare of claws and teeth and hunger. They ranged in size from small drones, no bigger than a person, to massive vessels that seemed to be part organic and part machine. "Can you fight them?" Rodriguez asked. "Our defenses will slow them. But this station was built for observation and research, not warfare. We have already sent distress calls to the assembly, but reinforcements will not arrive in time." Marcus stared at the approaching swarm. He thought about his crew, his ship, his promise to his daughter. They could try to flee through the wormhole, assuming it was still stable enough to survive another crossing. But even if they made it, what then? The Veloran had helped them. They were the first beings to treat humanity as potential equals rather than primitives to be ignored or conquered. "How many people are on this station?" he asked. 347 of our kind, plus various other species who were passing through." "Do you have evacuation vessels?" "A few, not enough for everyone, and the swarm is faster than our transports." Marcus turned to his team. Their faces showed fear, uncertainty, and something else. Determination. These were humans. They did not run from danger. They faced it head-on. "The horizon can help," Marcus said. "Our ship may be damaged, but we still have weapons. We can fight." The Veloran leader regarded him with something that might have been surprise. "You would risk your vessel, your lives, for beings you have only just met." "That's what humans do," Marcus replied simply. "We help those who need it. It's not complicated." He touched his communication device. "Web to horizon. Sarah, get the ship ready for combat operations. We're going to war." Back on the bridge, Sarah did not hesitate. She had heard enough through the open channel to understand the situation. "All hands to battle stations," she announced over the ship-wide intercom. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The crew of the Horizon responded with remarkable speed. Weapons systems came online. Shields were raised. In engineering, teams worked frantically to restore full power to the damaged systems. Marcus returned to his ship with his team. On the way, he passed Veloran, who stopped to look at him with expressions he was learning to read: confusion, curiosity, and perhaps the beginning of respect. "Captain on the bridge," Sarah called out as he stepped through the door. "Status report. Weapons are at 80%, shields at 60, engines are holding at 70. She paused. "Marcus, are you sure about this? We barely survived the wormhole, and now we're going to fight an enemy that scares a species thousands of years more advanced than us." "I'm sure," he said, taking his seat. "We didn't come all this way to turn our backs on people who need help. Besides, if these things are as dangerous as the Veloran say, they'll come for Earth eventually. Better to face them now with allies than later alone." The logic was sound, but more than that, it was right. Every person on the bridge knew it. This was who they were. This was who humanity was. The Veloran leader's voice came through the communication system. "Human vessel, we are transmitting tactical data on the swarm. Their primary weakness is heat. Concentrated thermal energy can disrupt their organic components." "We have plasma cannons," Rodriguez said, studying the data. "If we reconfigure them to focus the beam, we might be able to increase the thermal output." "Do it, you have 1 hour." The chief engineer nodded and hurried to his station. Around him, the crew worked with an intensity Marcus had never seen before. They were afraid. Anyone would be. But they channeled that fear into action, into purpose. Other ships were joining the defense. The Veloran had a small fleet of patrol craft, sleek vessels that moved with impressive speed. Various alien transports were being equipped with whatever weapons could be mounted on short notice. It was a motley collection of defenders, but it was all they had. "The swarm will arrive in 45 minutes, Chen reported. Marcus watched the approaching cloud on the tactical display. It seemed to grow darker and more menacing with each passing minute, but he felt something he had not expected to feel: hope. They were not facing this alone. They were standing alongside beings from across the galaxy, united against a common threat. "Reconfiguration complete," Rodriguez announced. "Plasma cannons are now operating at 130% thermal output. I wouldn't recommend sustained firing, but we should be able to put out some serious heat." "Good work," Marcus said. "Jackson, take us to the front of the formation. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right." The Horizon moved forward, taking its position among the alien vessels. The Veloran leader's voice came through once more. "Human vessel, your bravery is noted. May your courage serve you well in the battle ahead." "Thank you," Marcus replied. "Now let's show these things what happens when they pick a fight with the wrong neighborhood." The devouring swarm arrived like a wave of darkness crashing against the light. Millions of creatures poured through space, their hideous forms visible now on the main viewer. They were living nightmares, biological machines designed for nothing but consumption and destruction. "All ships, open fire," came the command from the Veloran fleet commander. The Horizon's plasma cannons roared to life. Brilliant streams of superheated energy lanced out into the approaching mass. Where they struck, swarm creatures exploded in bursts of flame and organic debris. But for every one destroyed, 10 more took its place. "Keep firing," Marcus ordered. "Target the larger ones." Around them, the battle raged. Veloran ships danced through the chaos, their weapons creating streams of blue light that cut through the enemy ranks. But the swarm adapted quickly. They changed their patterns, their formations, learning from every attack. "They're targeting our weapon systems," Sarah shouted as a cluster of smaller creatures attached themselves to the hull near the port cannons. "Divert power to the hull plating. Electrify the outer sections." Rodriguez made the adjustments. Electricity crackled along the ship's surface, frying the creatures that had latched on. But more were coming, always more. A massive swarm creature, easily the size of the Horizon, broke through the defensive line. It was heading straight for the station, its jaws open wide enough to swallow an entire section. "Jackson, intercept course, full speed." The pilot pushed the engines to their limit. The ship shot forward, placing itself between the monster and the station. All cannons fired at once, pouring everything they had into the creature's gaping maw. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the creature began to glow from within. The concentrated heat was cooking it from the inside. With a soundless explosion, it burst apart, showering the area with burning debris. "Direct hit," Chen cheered. But the victory was short-lived. The swarm was learning their tactics. They began to spread out, making themselves harder targets. Smaller creatures moved in coordinated swarms, overwhelming ship after ship in the defense fleet. "We're losing ships," Sarah reported grimly. 4 Veloran patrol craft down, 2 transports destroyed. Marcus watched a transport explode on the viewer. Lives lost, beings he would never know. But there was no time to mourn. The battle demanded everything he had. "Captain," Rodriguez called out, "I have an idea. The station's power core. If we could overload it in a controlled way, we might be able to create a massive thermal pulse. It would fry everything within 1,000 kilometers." "Including the station itself," Sarah pointed out. "Not if we time it right. Evacuate everyone to the ships, create a protective shadow behind the station, and then detonate the core. The station structure would shield us from the worst of the blast. It was desperate, it was dangerous, and it might be their only chance. Marcus opened a channel to the Veloran commander. "I have a proposal. It's risky, but it might save your people." He explained the plan. There was a long pause before the response came. "You would sacrifice our station to destroy the swarm." "I would sacrifice the station to save your people. Structures can be rebuilt. Lives cannot." Another pause. Then, "Your logic is sound, human. Begin the evacuation. Our engineers will work with yours on the overload sequence." The next 20 minutes were chaos. Ships docked with the station to take on refugees while fighters held back the swarm. The Horizon took aboard over 100 Veloran, cramming them into every available space. Rodriguez worked with alien engineers to rig the power core, a delicate process that could end in disaster if a single calculation was wrong. "Evacuation complete," Chen reported. "All personnel are aboard the surviving ships." "Core overload ready," Rodriguez added. "Timer is set for 3 minutes. That should give us enough time to get behind the station." "All ships move to shadow positions," Marcus commanded. "This is going to be close." The fleet pulled back, using the station's bulk as a shield. The swarm, sensing their prey was escaping, surged forward. Millions of creatures swarmed over the station, tearing into its hull, searching for the organic matter they craved. 30 seconds, Rodriguez counted. More swarm creatures appeared, drawn by the presence of so many ships. They pressed against the shields of the defending fleet, probing for weakness. 10 seconds. Marcus gripped his chair. Around him, his crew held their breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The station exploded. A wave of pure thermal energy erupted outward. It was like a miniature sun being born, a sphere of destruction that expanded at incredible speed. The swarm creatures caught in its path simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. The station itself was consumed, transformed from a structure of metal and glass into a cloud of glowing atoms. The defending fleet shook violently as the shockwave hit. Shields flared and flickered. Hull plates groaned under the strain, but they held. The station's bulk had absorbed enough of the blast to protect them. When the light faded and the sensors came back online, the view had changed completely. Where there had been millions of swarm creatures, there was now empty space. Scattered debris floated in the void, all that remained of the enemy force. "They're gone," Chen said, her voice filled with disbelief. "They're all gone." A ragged cheer went up from the crew. Around them, similar celebrations were happening on every ship in the fleet. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had survived. In the days that followed the battle, the surviving fleet gathered near the Wormhole entrance. The Veloran established a temporary command post aboard their largest remaining vessel, a research cruiser that had managed to escape the worst of the fighting. It was there that Marcus and his crew were invited for a formal ceremony. The interior of the Veloran ship was different from the station. It was older, more ornate, with decorations that spoke of a rich cultural history. Symbols lined the walls, telling stories in a visual language that Marcus could not understand but found beautiful nonetheless. The Veloran leader, whose name they had learned was Kalos, stood before a gathering of survivors from many different species. Some were tall and slender like the Veloran. Others were compact and muscular. A few defied easy description, their forms strange and wonderful. All of them watched as the human delegation entered. "We are gathered here to honor those who fell in defense of our station," Kalos began, his voice resonating through the chamber, "and to recognize those whose actions saved countless lives." He turned to face Marcus directly. "When the humans first emerged from the portal, we were uncertain. Your species is young and untested. We had seen others like you before. Some proved worthy, many did not." The chamber was silent. Marcus felt the weight of every gaze upon him. But in the face of the devouring swarm, you did not flee. You did not think only of yourselves. You stood beside us, fought beside us, and helped us find a way to victory. The plan that destroyed the swarm came from human ingenuity. The courage that held the line came from human hearts. Kalos made a gesture, and two other Veloran came forward carrying an object. It was a crystal of some kind, multifaceted and glowing with an inner light. They presented it to Marcus with obvious reverence. This is a beacon of alliance. It is given to those species who have proven themselves worthy of partnership with the Galactic Assembly. It signifies that humanity is no longer alone in the cosmos. You are now part of something greater. Marcus accepted the crystal with hands that trembled slightly. On behalf of Earth and all of humanity, I accept this honor. We hope to prove worthy of the trust you have placed in us. You already have, Kalos replied. Now let us speak of practical matters. Your vessel requires repairs. We will provide what assistance we can, and there is the question of how you will return home. The wormhole, Marcus said, is it still stable? It is, and now that you have the beacon, you will have access to navigation data that will make the crossing much safer. We cannot promise that all wormhole journeys will be without danger, but your chances have improved significantly. Over the next week, the horizon was repaired with a combination of human and alien technology. The hull breaches were sealed. The damaged systems were restored. Some improvements were even made, upgrades that the Veloran engineers offered as gifts. The ship that would return to Earth would be better than the one that had left. When the time came to leave, a small fleet of Veloran vessels escorted them to the wormhole entrance. It looked different now, less threatening. The colors were still swirling, but there was a pattern to them that Marcus could almost understand. Captain, Chen said from her station, I'm receiving a transmission from Kalos. Put it through. The Veloran leader appeared on the main viewer. Safe journey, Captain Webb. We look forward to welcoming your kind when you return. And you will return. Your people are curious and brave. The stars are in your future. Thank you, Kalos, for everything. It is we who should thank you. You reminded us of something we had forgotten. That courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to act despite fear. Your species may be young, but you have much to teach the elder races. The transmission ended. Marcus turned to his crew. They had been through hell and back. They had made history, and now they were going home. Helm, take us in, he ordered. The horizon entered the wormhole. This time, the crossing was different. The ship still shook, the lights still flickered, but there was a sense of control that had been absent before. The navigation data from the beacon guided them through the chaos, showing them the path of least resistance. Minutes later, they emerged on the other side, home. Earth hung in the distance, a blue marble against the black velvet of space. It was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen. Immediately, communications channels came alive with excited chatter. Earth Command had detected their emergence. News services were already broadcasting the return of the horizon. Captain, Chen said, tears in her eyes. They want to know if we're okay, and if we found anything. Marcus smiled. Tell them we're fine, and tell them to prepare for company. Humanity just made some new friends. The next few weeks were a blur of debriefings, medical examinations, and media appearances. The crew of the Horizon became instant celebrities. Every government on Earth wanted to talk to them. Every scientist wanted to study what they had brought back. But for Marcus, the most important moment came on a quiet evening at his home. His daughter ran to him the moment he walked through the door, throwing herself into his arms with a force that nearly knocked him over. "You came back," she whispered. "You promised and you came back." "I'll always come back," he told her. "No matter how far I go, I'll always find my way home." Later that night, as he sat on his back porch looking up at the stars, Marcus thought about everything that had happened. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe. They had proven themselves to beings far older and wiser. They had faced their fears and triumphed. But more than that, they had shown what made humans special. It was not their technology or their strength. It was their willingness to help others, to risk themselves for strangers, to believe that doing the right thing mattered even when no one was watching. The stars twinkled in the night sky, each one a sun with worlds of its own. Some of those worlds now knew about Earth and its people. Some of them were friends. And the universe, which had once seemed so vast and empty, now felt a little less lonely. This was just the beginning. Humanity had proven that they belonged among the stars, and whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them the way they always had, together, brave, human. Captain Marcus Webb smiled as a shooting star crossed the sky. Out there, somewhere, Kalos and the other Veloran were probably looking up at their own sky, thinking the same thoughts. The universe was vast and dangerous, but it was also full of wonder and possibility. And humanity, young and bold and brave, was ready to explore every corner of it.